Very much, Cathaoirleach. So, Minister, my question is to ask you in relation to, are you aware of the official complaint by the Association of Childhood Professionals to the United Nations and the Ombudsman for Children on the systemic discrimination of children and families by your department's childcare policy under the National Childcare Scheme, and if you can make a statement on this matter? Thanks.
Minister.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Deputy Funchion. I'm aware of the complaint and the concerns raised, and as you know, I'm strongly committed to supporting all children to develop to their full potential, especially those who are most disadvantaged. And there'll always be some debate about how best to do this, but I want to say I don't believe that the NCS discriminates systematically in the way that is stated. The NCS represents the first ever statutory entitlement to financial support for early learning and care. It marks a shift away from the previous schemes, which were based on medical cards and social protection entitlements. We now have a progressive scheme of universal and income-based subsidies, and thanks to the NCS, significantly more families are eligible for support. And the scheme is designed so that those on the lowest income receive the greatest support. And it's also designed to ensure that access is provided at a level necessary to support positive child development outcomes, regardless of whether the parents are at work or in study. And this approach is taken in other jurisdictions, and there is strong international evidence that it works to the benefit of children. The definition of work or study is broad, covering all forms of work or study arrangements, and this makes the scheme as flexible as possible. And indeed, the minimum hours required to engage in work or study to qualify for the enhanced number of hours is extremely low, at just 2 hours per week. Officials in my department have engaged with SOLAS to increase awareness of the supports available through the NCS for parents considering further study, and there's a link to the NCS website on all further education and training course hubs. The NCS also includes the sponsorship arrangement that allows for additional supports for vulnerable families where there's an identifiable need for early learning and childcare, and I've directed TUSA to take a broad interpretation of the sponsorship referral criteria. In terms of the complaint itself, I've recently contracted Frontier Economics to undertake a review of the NCS, and have asked that this review specifically consider the concerns raised. And separately, my officials have brought the complaint to the attention of the expert group convened by my department to develop a new funding model for early learning and childcare, and this group is reviewing the effectiveness of current approaches to funding and will submit recommendations later this year on how additional funding could be structured to deliver for children and families, including the most vulnerable.
Deputy Funchion.
I just want to check, is it 2 minutes or 1 minute? Okay. So, Minister, the issue that I have with this, and it's something that we have raised before, particularly in relation to after schools and children who are being shut out of that scheme, is there's a whole cohort of children falling through the cracks, and it has been raised on a number of occasions now. And I thought myself last year there was a commitment given to review the scheme, because if you are a parent who is working outside the home or engaged in education, you can avail of this. But at the end of the day, we should actually be looking at the needs of children. It shouldn't be about, obviously, you know, when we talk about childcare, people automatically think fees and they think parents, but actually we need to be thinking of what's best for children. And there is children there whose parents are not working outside the home, but they are at very high risk, they're very vulnerable. They may not be in the TUSLA system, they may not be brought to the attention of TUSLA because things may not be that bad. However, they rely on that childcare service for hot meals, for a safe, secure place, you know, for actually helping them, bring them on maybe to a homework club or other supports, and it's vital. Those children are very, very limited under this scheme, you know, and that they in the past, you know, I know in one way I see the point you're making around medical cards and that, but these children now are falling through the cracks, and there will be difficulties about that in the future, and we need to deal with that now. Sorry, Chair.
Minister.
Well, Deputy, you're right. Look, we've discussed this in the past, and I took a number of short-term measures to deal with some of the issues around the NCS, particularly the issue of sponsorship. And I know that'll come up later today. When I began as minister, there was about maybe 30 children sponsored across the country. Now it's 1,900. So there's been a very significant increase in terms of identifying specific vulnerable children. But in terms of that wider issue that you're talking about, as I say, that review has initiated. I've asked them specifically. We had to let the NCS run for a full year because, as you know, it only came into 2019, and of course, of all years for it to have its initial rollout has been this year with all the additional issues. But before we take significant changes, we do have to get data, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. We do have to see, and that's why this review is important. I did ask them to specifically look at this issue of disadvantage, and that will be, and the review will come back at the end of this year. That's the 1-year review, but as you know, there's the expert funding model as well, group who are also looking at this issue. So it's not being ignored, it is being acknowledged, and research is being done on how we address it.
Final supplementary, Deputy.
Chair, can I just ask what do you believe the time frame, and sorry if I've missed that, if you've said that, the time frame for the review will be, because I do welcome that and I think that's vital, and I really hope that it will be a genuine review and the issues will be taken on board, because it is really becoming a big difficulty, and it's particularly, like I said, in areas of disadvantage where children, parents just need that little bit of extra support. They may not be working outside the home, they may not be involved in education, but their children have been benefiting for years from after schools in particular. And I think that's such a vital time, because if you can help a child with their education and bring them on through homework, that's where children start falling through the cracks. They stop doing the homework, they start slipping back, then all of a sudden it starts going wrong for them, and then it becomes a confidence thing. So if we can actually intervene in those early years, and that is, as I say, I don't want to be repeating myself, but that is the heart of any schemes that we do in relation to children, whether it's childcare, whether it's our education system, we need a much greater focus on the actual children and the benefits for them. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister of Government.
Look, and the point is well made, Deputy, in terms of school-age childcare, and I recognise that there is a specific issue there in how the new scheme that the NCS has interacted with the existing provision of school-age childcare. So as I say, there are 2 reviews. There's the 1-year review there's the review of the first year of the implementation of the National Childcare Scheme that we're expecting that in the final quarter of this year. We're expecting that review to be completed and for the information to come forward. There's also the expert funding model group who've been working for about 2 years now at this stage. Their final report will come in November of this year, but I'm hoping to have engaged with them over the summer, particularly in the context of the budget negotiations and getting some initial information from them. So key pieces of research, key pieces of data will be coming in at the end of this year, and we'll be responding to them appropriately.